Members of the Osun State chapter of the Association of Local Government of Nigeria, ALGON, have appealed to President Bola Tinubu to redirect the Accountant General of the Federation as well as the Central Bank of Nigeria to allow only legally recognized officials as signatories to the state local government funds. At a news conference in Oshogbo, the ALGON leadership describes as illegal any attempt to allow ineligible persons to do biometrics or append signatures with a view to receiving the council funds. Now, the body is calling on President Tinubu to intervene on the matter so as to prevent the AGF and the CBN from creating artificial anarchy in the state, according to them.
Directed by the Mr. President in their FAC meeting held last week that the state government should immediately go and open an account for all the council, all the local governments in their state through Central Bank of Nigeria in all their regional office. There are some people who are these signatories to the account of local government. They are the HLAs, the elected chairman, the Director of Finance, and the DAG. Given anybody any advantages at the back of the door is a breach which is a criminal offense.
Well, as the crisis at the local government level in Osun State continues, with former All Progressives Congress officials occupying council offices in defiance of court ruling, legal analyst Liborous Oshoma joins me now to provide insight into the legal as well as constitutional implications of this ongoing impasse in Osun State. Thank you so much for being on the news.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great to see you. Osun State's local government crisis remain despite court rulings. The APC and the PDP is the ruling party in the state. The APC is the opposition. They both lay claims to victory and legitimacy. But you're the legal practitioner here. We've seen so many cases in court concerning this matter. As it stands today, who is in charge of the 30 local government areas of Osun State?
Yeah, thank you, Adesua. To answer that your question, let me start from the Supreme Court judgment in Rivers State.
Okay.
That has to do with the local government elections in Rivers State.
Okay.
You see, the unfortunate part in Nigeria, the unfortunate problem here is that the same people who claim to have fought for democracy, who claim to be promoters of the rule of law, are the same people who grossly violate and abuse the rule of law the most. When it favors them, they promote rule of law. When it doesn't, they violate it with impunity. And quickly, because of time, in the APC and the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission and others, the Apex Court, Supreme Court head, in page 40 to 41 of that judgment, instructively, the provisions of Section 150, Section 150 of the Electoral Act, Section 28, 29, and 30, and 103 of the Electoral Act 2022, clearly streamline the process regulated by INEC. Thus, against the backdrop of the finding, the local government election conducted in Rivers State on the 5th of October 2024 is a flagrant breach of the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. Hence, consequent upon the flagrant violation of this provision of the Electoral Act, the said local government election conducted in Rivers State ought to be, and same is hereby declared null and void, and of no effect whatsoever, in pursuant to Section 150, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act. This was the same position that the High Court, in the Federal High Court in, Oshogbo, held in the case of APM and APC. Because you said you've heard of too many cases. There are two cases, just two. When the elections were conducted in 2022, just before
in the twilight of the administration of Rauf Aregbesola.
Oyetola,
beg your pardon. Yes.
The PDP went to court to challenge the process against the backdrop that the Electoral Commission must give 1 year notice. And the Federal High Court in Oshoma heard in that case, in line with this position of the Supreme Court, even though the Supreme Court judgment had not been determined then, that it was a violation of the provisions of the Electoral Act, not given adequate notice. And also, the APM also approached the courts in the same manner. And the APC that won that election were parties in this matter. The Federal High Court declared judgment for the APM and for the PDP. And APC vacated the seats. I'm trying to explain so that the layman can understand. APC vacated the seats. And the case of PDP and APC, the Court of Appeal subsequently decided that since the matter was premeditated, that as at the time the matter went to court, notices for election had not been issued. And so that it was, since the actions were premeditated, and therefore subsequently that the the case has no substance to rest on.
Okay.
Permit me to use everyday words. And so, on that note, that judgment was dismissed by the Court of Appeal. That's one judgment. And then, you now had the APM judgment, the APM matter. The APC appealed that judgment. But the moment the court declared judgment in the PDP case, they abandoned the other appeal. They abandoned the appeal because they now had a government at the center that was supporting them, so they abandoned that appeal. That was 2 years ago.
Yes.
And so the Attorney General, then the PDP now went to court. And Quorum Justice Aderi Gbigbe. And Justice Aderi Gbigbe said, having looked at the judgment of the Federal High Court, the Court of Appeal judgment, and then the subsisting judgment in APM matter, and that there was nothing, because a consequential order was not made by the Court of Appeal, that there was nothing holding the state from going ahead to conduct a local government election, and subsequently ordered an election to be conducted.
And it was conducted.
And it was conducted
by the PDP.
And candidates won and duly sworn in.
But before that,
quite quickly. Okay. So now, the Attorney General wrote a letter claiming that by virtue of we must go on this break.
Okay. I would remind you of where we have gotten to, which is the case that the PDP should go ahead and conduct the local government elections, which they did.
Yes.
That's where we are at. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. I still have with me Liborous Oshoma dissecting the Osun state local government crisis. Thank you for staying with us. So, Justice Aderi Gbigbe did order for elections to hold. It held. And,
candidates, duly elected candidates were sworn in.
Yes.
And then the Attorney General wrote a letter that the Court of Appeal judgment in the PDP matter had, since having vacated the judgment of the lower court, without taking cognizance of the judgment in the APM matter, and that the APC candidates, the APC officials should be allowed to come back and take over the council. But 2 years later, this battle had been on.
Yes.
The APC suddenly realized, because that appeal, the APM appeal, was subsequently struck out for lack of diligent prosecution because they abandoned it.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, this year, just in June 13th, they suddenly remember that, oh, look, there is an albatross, there is an appeal. There's a subsisting judgment that actually vacated us from office, which is the APM judgment. So we need to go back to court. So they applied to release that appeal. And then the Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal, and then instructively also, Justice Oyebisi Omoyele, in agreeing with the judgment of his learned brother, said that the said appeal has been dismissed. What is more, the fresh local government election conducted on the 22nd of February, which is pursuant to the Justice Aderi Gbigbe's judgment, conducted on the 22nd of February, and the swearing in of the new council and councillors have overtaken the substratum of this dispute. Releasing the appeal at this stage will serve no practical purpose. That means even if we hear the appeal now, it becomes an academic exercise because those offices have been filled, election had been conducted. The question you now ask, if the Attorney General feels that the APC members, their office is still subsisting, why did they go to court? Why did they go to release?
2 years after.
2 years after. Even the court, if you read the body of the judgment, the court said that the APC had not shown that they truly desired to occupy that office.
It makes sense. I mean, if you abandoned it for 2 years.
And so the question now is, why I was listening to, I think some of the press release by some of the chairmen. What actually happened was, after that circular, that all local government chairmen should go back and open account with the CBN for their subsequent to the Supreme Court judgment last year. What the letter, there's a letter that emanated from the office of the Minister for Finance, directed to the APC officials, addressed to them in the APC secretariat in Oshoma, that they should go open accounts. So if they do that, what it means is that the APC, the federal government, is actually encouraging individuals, private individuals, to go open account
with the CBN.
With the CBN in their name against the laid down rules. So these people, so if you now send allocation to them, what will they be using it for? In their private pocket?
Interesting, because they do not occupy the office as the law stands.
Because at the law stands, you see, Adesua, it's unfortunate that every Attorney General that comes, no matter how highly respected, the moment they wear the toga of politics, they want to soil that, that reputation they once had. The current Attorney General of the Federation, it was somebody, as a barman, as a senior advocate of Nigeria, was somebody who you say consistently, while he was on the other side, would sit down here and say what I'm saying, even in court, would uphold the law to the latter.
Okay.
But today he has allowed himself to be dragged into the murky waters of politics, and you see the Attorney General giving, advice tongue in cheek.
Is it possible that the Attorney General was not aware of the APM case that had stalled for 2 years before giving that directive? As
an Attorney General of the Federation, certainly, as the Chief Law Officer, and that's why, remember when the APC were in opposition, they did advocate for a distinction or a divorce between the office of the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice, because the Minister for Justice is the advisor to the federal government, while the Attorney General is the Chief Law Officer of the entire Federation. Okay. So as an Attorney General, what you should do would be to hear both sides or the other pattern. Okay. And so in this instance, there is no way to answer your question directly. The Attorney General will not be aware of, because even if it's not aware, the judgment was reported. Okay, so
long and short, Liborous Oshoma, the law as it stands does recognize the PDP officials as the duly elected officials.
The law, we even say the law is what the court says it is.
Okay, great.
And the Court of Appeal has duly interpreted that position. And like I told you, Justice Omoyele explicitly stated it, that look, even if we allow you to go on with this appeal, those offices have been filled.
It makes no
already.
Sense. But
it makes no sense.
The APC, finally, because I have to go, the APC has said only the Supreme Court can offer final clarity, and they remain in office.
You see, it is sad that little matters that are crystal clear, we want to bog the Supreme Court with it. And the Court of Appeal has interpreted. Okay. You have not even gone to Supreme Court. You are saying only the Supreme Court.
All right.
That judgment of the Court of Appeal is subsisting until overturned. And so would you now say, because you have not gone on appeal and there is no stay of execution of that judgment, and so because of that, funds should be handed over to private individuals who are not recognized by the law?
All right. Very fundamental question. Thank you so much, Liborous Oshoma, for breaking it down for us to understand.
My pleasure.
Legally.